All right, let us start with the question related to SBL leadership portion, that is RMS's International, right? And firstly, what we have to do, we will look at the requirements. So, explain with reference to Johnson, Scholes, and Whittington model the importance of strategic implementation in the strategic management process. It will give us 5 marks. Okay. Then, with reference to Ramesses and the approaches to leadership used by senior management, learn, evaluate the importance of leadership in achieving strategic success, and it will give us 10 marks. Right. So, now what we will do, we will look at this scenario. Janet Singh was recently appointed as chief executive of Remissus International, which is a long established family run export house specializing in buying manufactured goods from Western Europe and the USA for resale in Africa and in the Middle East. Janet Singh was previously marketing director of one of Remissus International's biggest suppliers. She is the first CEO appointed from outside the family. Remis's International had been very successful many years, but has begun to suffer from increasing competition in its chosen markets, particularly from strong manufacturing companies expanding downstream to capture more of the value in the supply chain. Remis's has introduced number of initiatives over the last 3 years in order to try to respond to the challenge it has faced. Okay, so what Janet Singh was recently appointed chief executive. Okay, which is a long-established family-run export house specializing in buying manufactured goods from Western Europe and USA for resale in Africa and Middle East. Janet Singh was previously marketing director of one of Premises International biggest suppliers. She is a first CEO appointed from outside the family. Nemesis International had been very successful for many years but has begun to suffer from increasing competition in chosen markets, particularly from strong manufacturing companies expanding downstream to capture more of the value in the supply chain. Nemesis has introduced a number of initiatives over the last 3 years in order to try to respond to the challenges it has faced. The initiatives have included seeking a wider range of products to resell from a broader supply base, more suppliers attempting to have closer collaborative agreements with the major suppliers to minimize any potential conflict and attempting to operate in more markets. However, none of these initiatives has been particularly successful and turnover has stagnated. Janet has said that one of the problems which is affecting Nemesis competitive position is that the underlying logic behind the initiatives appears to be finding ways of improving performance while maintaining the company's existing business model and culture. However, Janet argued that in order to respond to the changing environment, Nemesis needs to consider making more fundamental changes to vision and strategy. Janet has arranged a board meeting to discuss Remes's future strategies and its strategic management process. The meeting was positive and constructive, although Janet has added the following note of caution. We need to remember that senior management teams within companies can often be good at analyzing the company's position and identifying potential strategic options available to it. However, they are often much less useful in actually implementing the chosen strategies. Okay, so far so good. Now, um, for the part A, that is explained with reference to Johnson's schools and bidding model, importance of strategic implementation and strategic management process. What we'll say firstly, we will give the reference of Johnson schools and Whittington model characterizes characterizes management process as having three interrelated elements, as having three interrelated elements. And what are those? Um, Number one, strategic position, which is also known as strategic analysis. Strategic position, strategic choice is the number two one. And number three, strategic implementation. Right? So the focus of strategic analysis is on understanding the current strategic position of organization. Okay. Strategic choice involve evaluating and choosing between alternative strategies of organization which they can pursue, while strategic implementations look at how these strategies are actually put into practice. So three things. First, as you can say, strategic position, what it can do, it's can take the understanding of current organization position. Two, evaluating and choosing between the alternatives. Between alternatives. And number three, strategic implementations, looking at how these practices can put into practice. Right? So, strategic implementation is a conversion of the strategy into detailed plans or objectives for operating units. Therefore, it is a vital part of the management process because a strategy can only start delivering benefits to organization once it has put into place. In order to be beneficial to an organization, a strategy must be able to be implemented. Okay, so the strategic implementation of a process highlights key issues. And what are those key issues? Remember them. Key issues such as resource availability, organizational structure, as well as potential need for change within an organization in order to implement the strategy successfully. Johnson Scholes and Whittington model also, emphasize that strategic management process should not be seen as linear model in the way that the traditional rational planning model, okay, uh, for example, portrays it. Rather, strategic implementation is interlinked with both strategic analysis and strategic choice. For example, in process of implementation, a strategy, an organization might discover features of its resources and structure which lead to reevaluated assessment of strategic position and choices. Similarly, when evaluating strategy, an organization needs to consider whether it has the necessary resources to implement this successfully and whether strategy fits with the organization structure and culture. Okay. So far, so good. Now, with reference to Ramesses' approaches to leadership used by senior management, evaluate the importance of leadership in achieving strategic process 10 marks. Now we will discuss about the B part. So, yeah, it's right thing that, okay, for strategic success in any organization and strategic leadership can be one of the key drivers. Okay, of strategy implementation. Strategic leaders need to have a clear vision for where an organizations need to go and to communicate this vision in order to motivate and inspire others to achieve the vision. Right now, let us compare us between transformational versus transactional leadership. What are those two things? Right. So transactional versus transformational leadership. Right. So now, firstly, transactional leadership. Transactional leadership focus on system and controls, and the existing processes and activities within an organization. And it tries to achieve efficiencies within the current environment. In transactional leadership, leaders seek improvement rather than change. Okay, they seek improvement, not change. Transactional leadership can be important for the implementation of existing strategic plans. However, transactional leadership alone is often not sufficient to achieve strategic success. Okay, then we have transformational leadership. Transformational leadership, where changes to an organizational culture, mindset or values are required in order to help the organization respond respond effectively? To changes in environment, transformational leadership is required. And unlike transactional leaders who focus primarily on the maintaining the status quo within an organizational, transformational leaders recognize the need for change, develop an alternative vision for the future, and which can be used to enable their own organization to achieve strategic success. Such transformational leadership is typically more appropriate than transactional leadership for achieving strategic success. So it appears Remesis is facing some significant changes in its competitive environment, which are having an adverse effect on its performance. Therefore, transformational leadership is likely to be needed. Okay, likely to be needed to develop a new vision strategy which can help to restore and assist competitive success. Right? So far, so good. In recent years, now further what you can say that in recent years before Janet's appointment, Remesis senior management appear to be have adopted a transactional approach and have focus of initiative which try to respond to market changes while preserving the company's existing business model rather than developing broader new strategies which will allow it to take advantage of new opportunities. As such, under its previous leadership, Remesis appears to have been in danger of strategic drift, appointing Janet as the first CEO from outside the family could be seen as attempt by family to bring in a leader with necessary creativity and vision to restore company's fortunes. Now, finally, uh, we can discuss some about the change management, and we can say that We have noted above that transformational leaders recognize the need for change, but creating an environment for change could be major challenge. Major challenge for whom? For Janet. That's how you need to connect it with the scenario, right? And Janet will need to communicate for her vision for the future and to overcome any resistance to change, which could be particular challenge in business, which is not used to having making a major strategic changes. Again, the contrast between transformational and transactional leadership could be important here. Over the past 3 years, Nemesis senior management team has recognized the need for change in the organization. Okay, in the organization, what they do, but in kept with the transactional approach, have proposed solutions which don't really remiss his business model. Although they have tried to a range of slightly different initiatives, none of these have particularly succeed in the past. This suggests the more fundamental, visionary, and innovative changes may be required to restore Remes's competitive positions. Okay. So far so good. That's how you need to drop the answer for this part of the question. Well, that's what I did. For the planning, you can elaborate these things further in your answer, and you here you go. You will get maximum 12 to 15 marks. Like it. I hope it's cool for you.